Hey there, and welcome to the RegroupTAX Demo. I'm so glad you're here today, and I am excited to fill you in on what RegroupTAX does and how it could be a good fit for your firm. To get started, let's quickly look at what we'll be covering today. First, I'll tell you a bit about who we are at RegroupTAX and what we do. Then we'll look at the problem in the accounting industry and how we plan to fix that problem. And then we'll get into the good stuff, an actual demo of the RegroupTAX software. To start off, let me introduce you to our team. That's me on the left, Emily Harper, Rachel Gregg is in the middle, and our amazing CTO, Ned Deere, is on the right. Both Rachel and I are practicing CPAs, and we're now on a mission to provide a solution to all of our other fellow CPAs out there. So to give you a bit of a background about RegroupTAX, both Rachel and I began our careers at a local accounting firm in San Diego, focusing on business income tax. Our days were quickly filled with reorganizing financials, summing up accounts, creating Excel work papers, and then finally, after all of that, getting the data into the tax software and using our actual CPA skills to prepare the return. So more times than not, we were asking ourselves, why the heck are we doing things this way? So we decided to create a solution, and that's when RegroupTAX was born. So we were, and we are still, on a mission to provide a web-based, easy-to-use, cost-efficient workpaper tool to help firms prepare business tax returns. And that brings me to exactly what we do here at RegroupTAX. The core behind our software is a trial balance function, which allows firms to assign a tax account to every book account in a business's chart of accounts. The software then generates tax basis work papers that tie directly to the tax return in the exact order of the tax return, depending on the entity type. Lastly, the software provides a way to post book and tax journal entries to complete the preparation process. Now let's take a look at the problem that lies in the accounting industry and where we stand today. There is no trial balance software available that is not only built specifically for tax prep and review, but is accounting and tax software neutral. And I'll get into the details of that in just a minute. There's also no trial balance software available that was built specifically for the cloud and remains cost efficient for firms of any size. Now let's take a look at RegroupTAX's actual solution to that problem. RegroupTAX generates work papers that are designed for the tax preparer and reviewer. These work papers were built by two practicing CPAs, and the work papers tie directly to the entity tax return in the exact order of the tax return, which makes prep and reviews a breeze. The software also serves as a middleman, meaning the business can choose to use any accounting software on their end, QuickBooks, Xero, Sage, whatever it may be, and the tax professional can use any tax software on their end, CCH Access, Lacert, UltraTax, and you can still utilize RegroupTAX for work papers because we serve as that middleman between the accounting software and the tax software. Therefore, we are software neutral. We also allow import from Xero and QBO or a standard Excel trial balance. And we link to CCH Access and ProSystem FX, as well as provide an Excel-based export report if you use a different tax software. We'll get into that in the demo. And RegroupTAX was built specifically for the web, so its functionality is spot on for a cloud-based environment. And lastly, RegroupTAX is priced based on the number of returns that you utilize RegroupTAX for, rather than the number of licenses that you need. So the pricing makes sense for firms of any size. So let's recap why RegroupTAX is different than other solutions out there. RegroupTAX was built for the web, and it's intended to be used by tax professionals. The software is also very clean and intuitive rather than some of the clunky, outdated software out there. The pricing structure is based on the number of returns instead of the number of licenses. And the import functionality is much more expansive than software that's currently available. RegroupTAX accepts both the balance sheet and the income statement or the trial balance. You can use either format with or without account numbers, which makes a big difference when importing financials that come directly from the business. Our goal is for you to not have to manipulate any of these financials. We just want you to be able to get them into RegroupTAX and then get them into your tax software. Okay, so now that you know more about RegroupTAX, let's jump into an actual demo of the product because that's why you're here. So let me jump out of here and go to our demo. So like I mentioned earlier, our pricing is based on the number of returns rather than the number of licenses. So anyone in your firm can have a login to your firm's account. So I'm going to log in using our demo account here. And what that's going to do when you first log in, that's going to take you directly to what I call this main dashboard. So this is where all of your business clients sit that you use RegroupTAX for. So you'll notice here, you're automatically taken to the most current tax year. So this will soon be updated to 2018, but you're automatically taken to the current filing year. And up here at the top is where you can navigate throughout the different tax years. So let's jump into an actual client here and walk through getting the financials into RegroupTAX, mapping accounts, posting journal entries, reviewing reports, and then getting it out of RegroupTAX for your tax software. So to work in a specific client, we'll just click on the client name, and that'll take us to the taxpayer specific dashboard is what I like to call it. Over here on the left, you're going to find all of the information for that specific taxpayer. So we have the name, the taxpayer number, if you use that internally for tracking purposes, the tax period, which could be calendar or fiscal, the type, we support S Corp, C Corp, and partnerships, as well as 8825 activity and Schedule F farming activity, and then the status. Pro forma essentially means that we're waiting on financials, nothing has happened. Then the file will be routed to in process once we import, which you'll see in a moment here. Then you can route to in review, and then you can route to final. And then the tax year, you can see here, you can navigate throughout the different tax years for that specific taxpayer. So let's go ahead and import financials. So it's tax season, you've received the financials, and we're ready to import. So in this case, there are a few ways that we can get the financials into RegroupTAX. If your client uses Xero and you have access to that Xero file, you can use our direct integration to Xero. If you click on this, that's going to take you to the Xero account. You will use your Xero credentials to log in. It'll take you directly to AutoShop, which is the taxpayer we're working on, and it'll ask you to choose to import either the balance sheet and income statement or the trial balance, and it'll also prompt you to choose either cash or accrual. If you don't have access to Xero, there's a few other ways that we can get the information into RegroupTAX. We can either import a QuickBooks or QBO balance sheet and income statement or trial balance, or we can import a Xero balance sheet and income statement or trial balance if we don't have access to their actual Xero file. In this case, we're going to import a QuickBooks balance sheet and an income statement. So let me show you exactly what that looks like that we're going to be importing here. This is what we're going to import for this example. So you can see down here that we have the balance sheet, we have the P&L, and we have these QuickBooks export tips that always show up when you export out of QuickBooks. You'll also see that it's a year-to-year comparison for both the P&L and the balance sheet. And there's headers, right? This is what it looks like when you export directly out of QuickBooks. You don't have to manipulate anything here. You export it out of QuickBooks, save it to your desktop or somewhere on your computer, close out of it, and then we can import. So what we're really trying to do here is to cover any sort of format possible that you could receive from your clients. So whether it's a P&L trend or the year-to-year comparison or maybe just a normal balance sheet and income statement, but with account numbers, you don't have to manipulate anything. You can just save it and then import it. And really quickly, before I actually import that file, the last way that you could get information into RegroupTAX is just simply create a 2-column trial balance. So if your client sends you financials in PDF format, or maybe they come from Sage or FreshBooks, some sort of accounting system that we don't support yet, you can just create a 2-column trial balance. Column A is the book account name. Column B is the value. That should net to 0. Save that as a CSV file and then import. And that trial balance will automatically get saved with that taxpayer in RegroupTAX, so you can use that trial balance year after year without having to recreate the wheel. So let's go ahead and import our QuickBooks file. What the software is going to do is read that balance sheet and income statement and turn it into a trial balance for us. So here you can see all of the accounts that we're importing. If we scroll down, we can see every single one. It's going to make sure that that trial balance is in balance. So you can see here the TB is in balance. Please confirm the import data. If it's not in balance, you're going to have to go back, find the discrepancy, and adjust that before you import. So we'll say, confirmed, please import. And now that the software is going to compare that trial balance to the prior year for this specific taxpayer. So it looks at all of the accounts that we just imported, compares it to 2016, and it auto maps 74 of the accounts based on what we mapped last year. 3 accounts still need to be mapped, so we know that there's 3 new book accounts this year that we need to pay attention to. If we close out of that, the software is automatically going to take us to the Accounts tab, and it's automatically going to update our status to in process because now we're working on this client. So if we scroll down in the Accounts tab, you can see that the default page is unmapped accounts because that's all we really care about in the current year. Everything else has been mapped based on previous years, so we just want to pay attention to the brand new book accounts. The way that the mapping works, there's a few different ways you can map. You can start typing what you know the tax account line should be. So in this case, we know it's going to be cash. Or maybe you know it's going to be an expense, but you're not sure which one. Start typing expense. All of your ordinary expenses populate in the drop-down. Or lastly, you could input this percentage sign, and then all possible tax account lines for an S Corp are populated in the drop-down. So this drop-down obviously is going to change based on whether it's an S Corp, a C Corp, or a partnership. So the drop-down is then in order of asset, liability, equity, income, expense. If you scroll all the way down, we have separately stated, 8825, Schedule F. So we can go ahead and map this one. A couple of things to note on this screen really quickly is the sub-account name field. What this serves as is a way to map any accounts that generate a supporting statement on the tax return. So if we were to map this as an other asset, that generates a supporting statement on the tax return with a title for the other asset, which might be deposits. So if you were to map this to one of those accounts that generates a supporting statement and you were to save without inputting a sub-account name, the software will warn you and say, hey, we need a sub-account name so that we can generate the reports correctly that tie to the tax return. So it would be the same thing if you had other deductions, you wanted to name this internet. Same thing. Also, the 8825 or farming, if we were to give this an 8825 mapping, the software would require an 8825 name. This is just the name, either maybe the address of the rental property or maybe just residential real estate, whatever you call it on the tax return, and same with the farming. What that'll do is actually generate an 8825 report on the Reports tab, which we'll look at in just a minute, or a Schedule F report that ties directly to the tax return. So let's go ahead and map our 3 accounts. We'll save those, and you'll see they get moved, excuse me, to all accounts because they're mapped now. Excuse me. So let's take a look at the All Accounts tab. This is where everything sits that we imported. So you can see, excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. You can see all of the book account names that we imported, all of the mappings. The non-bold mappings are based on last year. The bold mappings mean that it is a new account this year. If we scroll all the way down, we can sort, we can view by 25, 50, or 100. And we could also delete all accounts if for some reason you needed to completely start over. Okay, so we've mapped our new book accounts. Now we want to post journal entries. So this is very similar to any other journal entry function you've seen in other software, but you can post book and tax journal entries. So you can post a book adjusting entry, a tax adjusting entry, or a tax reclassification entry. In this case, let's post our meals and entertainment. So you can give it an entry number if you would like, and then you can either start typing a custom memo or, again, push this percentage sign, and all of the memos that we think are used most often are in this drop down automatically. So depreciation, meals and entertainment, 179, penalties, all of those memos that you tend to use year after year. If you type a custom memo, that will stick with that specific taxpayer from year to year also. So in this case, we are reflecting the 50% meals and entertainment tax adjustment. So if we scroll down here, finding the account that we want to post to is very similar to the accounts tab. We can start typing. We can input this percentage sign and check out all of our accounts in order. So in this case, we know it's meals. Work paper reference, if you would like to use that, it can either be a note or a work paper reference, such as work paper 2B. And then we're going to post to an M1 account. So this M1 account is always here for every taxpayer. It's not an account that you have to create. It's always available. And at the bottom of the screen, you can see that if we're out of balance, we're not going to be able to save the entry, and it also tell us what we are out of balance by. So we'll get into balance. I'm not going to actually save that because I already have one saved down here. But once we save that, all of the posted journal entries are then at the bottom of the screen. So if you need to edit one, you can click on the entry number. It'll populate up above. You can save your changes. You can delete the entry, or you can void the entry. The reason that we have void is because if you go up here, if you hold down Control and you click any of these other tabs, those tabs will open in different browsers. So a lot of our firms will have the Reports tab open on a different monitor while they're posting journal entries. So we could void a journal entry if it's a big, long journal entry, and we say, oh, well, maybe we don't need that one. Let's void it, refresh the reports on our second monitor, and see what happens to our work papers without that entry. Then we can go back and unvoid it if we still need that entry. So that's what that functionality is for. One other thing I want to point out here is you can add a new account. You can also do this on the Accounts tab. If we click that button, what we're going to do is choose a tax line. Again, start typing, or a percentage sign. A name, maybe this is a new Wells Fargo account, and update. It's not going to allow you to give a balance to the account because we want everything to be in balance. So we'll add the account, and then we can post a journal entry to it to actually give the account a value. So that's how you would add a new account. Okay, so we have mapped our 3 new book accounts. We have posted our book and tax journal entries. Now we're going to review the reports. So this is exactly what we're trying to do here at RegroupTAX, is generate these cloud-based tax basis work papers that tie directly to your return. So instead of having to use an Excel workbook or PDF and mark up the PDF everywhere, these reports are generated automatically by the software to take the unadjusted book accounts and values and turn it into an adjusted tax work paper file that we can use. So you'll see here on the left, there's various formats that you can view. We have per Schedule L, so that would be a tax basis balance sheet, unadjusted book to Schedule L comparison. This is the report that most clients use most often. And then we have our year-to-year comparison. Same with the P&L. and journal entries, and I'll get into this new accounts report in just a moment. So let's take a look at our unadjusted book to Schedule L comparison. So if we scroll down here, we can see all of our book account names, where they got grouped based on what they were mapped to. So the bold titles and the bold numbers here on the right in this adjusted tax column, that indicates that it's an actual number on the tax return. So if we have our 1120S open on our second monitor, we can scroll through this work paper and tick and tie all of these bold numbers to our 1120S in the exact order of our 1120S. So it makes review such a breeze. So if we scroll down, you can see the entire report here, and you can see where everything gets grouped. So let's go ahead and look at the book to tax comparison for the income statement also. So these bold numbers, again, are going to tie directly to page 1 of the 1120S. So these reports here are automatically updated based on the entity type. So this income statement is going to look a little bit different if it were a C Corp or if it was a partnership. So we can see here these bold numbers are going to tie directly to page 1 of the 1120S. So we have our gross receipts, all of our deductions. We can see where any journal entries are posted. So any journal entries would be posted in this book or tax column here. And if we scroll all the way down, we can see our adjusted book and our adjusted tax value. So in just a moment, I'll jump into a client that has a little bit more activity going on so you can see the actual journal entries posted and how we get from point A to point B. So we have the balance sheet and the income statement and then our journal entries report. So in this case, we had the one journal entry which I didn't actually post to, but I will show you the features of the journal entry report here. We could show book only. We could get rid of the author. We could get rid of the work paper reference. You can customize this in any way that you want to be able to send that back to the business or the accounting department. So any of these reports could be exported to Excel or PDF or printed to paper. And the last report I want to show you is the new accounts report. So this is used pretty much by reviewers if you have a review process in your firm. So this is just an easy way for a reviewer to look at the book accounts, the new book accounts for the year, and how they were mapped. So if a staff or an intern is in charge of mapping and posting a few journal entries, and then the reviewer is taking it from there, they can easily look at this report and make sure they agree with how everything was mapped. If not, they can go to the accounts tab and excuse me, remap everything. Excuse me. And lastly, this print active reports button, that's going to merge all of these reports into one PDF. So some of our firms will save this one PDF file elsewhere if they have a document management system. If not, you can just leave all the reports here and they'll be here for you year after year when you want to review them. So let's jump into a return that has a little bit more activity. So I can show you that journal entries report. Here we go. Okay, so let's look at the book to tax comparison for the income statement. This is an 1120S also. This is an S Corp, but you'll see here that this one has a cost of goods sold section. So our report automatically adds the cost of goods sold calculation here, which is going to tie directly to the 1125A. You'll also see all of the book journal entries posted and tax journal entries posted. So if we scroll all the way down, we can easily move from our adjusted book to our adjusted tax. And a lot of our firms will use these reports to actually sit down with the business client and walk through these journal entries and explain how they moved from $228,000 loss to a $313,000 loss. Because a lot of taxpayers don't understand why their financials look different than what's on the tax return. So these reports are also great to help review the tax return with your clients. In their journal entries report, this one has quite a few more journal entries here. So as I was saying, we could show book only. If we wanted to send only the book journal entries, we could get rid of the author, get rid of the work paper. We don't need that. We probably don't need to show them the tax line, and then export it to Excel or PDF and send that to the accounting department to post at the end of the year. So the last step, let's recap a little bit. We've imported the financials in whatever format we get them. We've mapped our 3 new book accounts. We posted our book and tax journal entries, and we've reviewed our reports. Everything looks good. We're ready to get it into the tax software. There's 2 easy ways, really easy ways to get it into CCH Access or CCH Pro System FX. So let's go ahead and download this file, and I'll show you what this looks like. This is a trial balance that will then be imported into CCH Access. So this is built for that tax software. If you don't use Access or Pro Systems, you can easily use this trial balance to quickly input into Lacert, UltraTax, whatever it may be. So this is a summary of all of the tax lines and the adjusted tax values. So you can easily go input this into your tax software and calculate, and then your tax return ties directly to these reports. So just to give you a little bit of a heads up, we are working on integrations on both fronts. So we're working on more integrations with accounting software to get information in, and we're working on more integrations with tax software, so Lacert, UltraTax, Drake, things like that, to automatically push the information into the tax software. But to be honest, that last step, that data entry step, takes 5 minutes or less, especially when you have this summarized adjusted tax trial balance. So there is a very easy workaround if you are not a CCH user. You can also just use these reports. Let's take a look at per Schedule L balance sheet. You could also just pull this up and quickly input the bold numbers. And this is in the exact order of the tax return. So it's very easy to complete that very last step. And that's it. So like I mentioned before, RegroupTAX's goal is to not only minimize data entry to the best of our ability, but to create these cloud-based tax basis work papers. That's what we really want to do, is have this work paper file that's consistent for all of your tax returns, so that you don't have one client that has this Excel workbook that you have to manually input, update all of the values every year, and hope that the formulas work so that if you post journal entries in the Excel workbook, the financials update. Maybe you have another client that's PDF and you have to use your PDF editor to work paper reference on top of that and manually do the journal entries. We want every single file to look the same. So that's why we're creating these reports, this work paper file. And then we also want to minimize the data entry. That's why we've built out the import functionality so much, and we continue to build out the export functionality. So a few other things before I let you go. I just want to show you what some of these other tabs are. This history tab is just a history of that specific taxpayer. So we can see when we were in process, when we were final, if we routed to review. You can see how many days it sat in each step for internal tracking. This documents tab is kind of twofold. You can either upload documents here that are source documents, so maybe an officer comp W-2, maybe depreciation schedule, whatever it may be, and you can use this as your document storage for the taxpayer. Or it also serves as sort of an audit trail of the beginning to end of this taxpayer. So you saw in the beginning when we imported that QuickBooks balance sheet and income statement, that would automatically get saved here. And then the trial balance that the software creates, that pop-up window that we saw in the beginning where it said our trial balance is in balance, that automatically gets saved here. And then also all of the active reports. So I mentioned earlier, if you click print active reports, it'll merge everything into one PDF. That PDF automatically gets saved here when you click that button. So there's a lot of stuff that automatically gets saved here, so you can see kind of where you started with what you first imported, and then where you ended with your work paper file. And then lastly, the notes tab. This is just a very simple way to keep notes for this specific taxpayer. So if we wanted to add a note, maybe that a truck was purchased in 2018, we can go ahead and do that. And then you can mark the note as complete. So if you do have a review process, you can add notes here in the review process, and the preparer can mark them as complete, and it'll show who completed it and when, so you can track that. And lastly, up here, if you need any support, we have written guides, and we also have video tutorials. And then down here, if you click this little blue button, that's where you can find me, Emily, and start a conversation with me. And I am very quick to respond if you have any questions while you're in the software. So I hope that you enjoyed this demo. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you understand what we're trying to accomplish here at RegroupTAX. And I hope it is something that your firm can try out, and hopefully it works for you. So if you're ready to try it out, we offer a free 30-day trial. You can either go to RegroupTAX.com and click on free trial, or underneath this demo, above this demo, there's a button that says sign up for my free trial. You can click on that, and that'll take you to the page to gather your info. We just need your name, your firm, I believe the number of employees you have, just information that we gather, and then it'll set you up with a free 30-day trial. We don't gather any billing information, so you don't have to go back in and cancel your account. It's just a 30-day trial for you to go in, add a few business returns, and try the import functionality, map some accounts, export it, and see how it works for you. So go try out the 30-day trial, and if you have any questions while you're in there, click on this blue little chat button, and I will be there to answer them. So again, thank you so much for joining me. Click on that button at the top right, free trial, or go to RegroupTAX.com. And I hope to talk to you soon. Happy tax prepping.